This is Command Sergeant Major retired Dave Eustace, and I'm here with Sergeant First Class Besser from the state of Florida, Chiefs 54 winner, fired up recruiter, and hopefully we'll get some good stuff out for new recruiters, struggling recruiters, high-speed recruiters, pretty much everybody. But in order to get started, Sergeant, why don't you just give us a little background of your guard story and your recruiting story.
Roger that, Sergeant Major. So for me, to be honest, I never wanted to join the military to begin with. It wasn't even on my radar. My goal when I was in college was actually just to go to, or in high school was just to go to college. I wanted to be the first in my family to go to college, graduate, get a degree, all that good stuff. But I didn't have a plan in place. I was kind of a knucklehead. And so every day there would be different recruiters that would come to our cafeteria and bombard us with information while I was trying to eat. And I would always tell them the same thing, just leave me alone, I'm not interested. And then finally, my senior year, right before we went on Christmas break, the active component recruiters were coming in and I was like, just leave me alone, I'm not joining, I'm going to college. And he asked me a question I'll never forget to this day. He said, well, how are you going to pay for college? And I was like, oh crap, I don't know. So I heard him out and he said, well, if I joined the Army, I'd have all this time to go to college. They pay 100% of my college tuition. And it sounded like a great deal. So I went home that night, told my parents, and they were like, yeah, if you want to go to college, it's probably your only option. And looking back, I think they said that just to get me out of the house. But I graduated and I went off and did 4 years at Fort Hood, Texas, and I didn't take one college class. So I was extremely frustrated. I was upset. I was like, man, I was totally lied to. And I was at the point where I could have extended or ETS'd out. And I chose to ETS out, come back home to the Tampa, Florida area and be a civilian again. And I was on during that transition period of being transitioned from soldier to civilian. I saw a buddy of mine I went to high school with, and he had a uniform on and it said Army. And I just assumed he was in the Army. So I asked him where he was stationed at, and he looked at me kind of weird. He goes, station? He goes, I'm in the National Guard. So I looked at him kind of weird, and I was like, well, what the heck is the National Guard? And that's when he told me he was working one Saturday, one Sunday a month, and the 2 weeks in the summertime. I was like, oh, so you're in the reserves? He goes, no, I'm in the Guard. And I was like, well, what the heck is the difference? So he broke the differences down, and this was July 17th of 2002. He was fixing to graduate from the University of South Florida. So I instantly got jealous. I got envious. I got mad because here it is that we graduated together and he's about to accomplish something that I wanted to do. And I'm still 4 years behind him now. So that day I asked him a bunch of questions, what he liked, what he didn't like, what sucked about it, what was good about the Guard, everything. Did a little more research. And on July 18th of 2002, I actually walked into the office I work at in Brandon, Florida. And I had a list of questions written down and the answers, and I already did some research because I knew the answers to my questions because I didn't want to get screwed over again. And from the moment I walked in to that office, it felt completely different. And I talked to a lot of recruiters prior to that meeting I had with my recruiter for the Guard, but it never felt personal before. It always felt like they were gaining something more than I was, and I always had like a weird feeling, but I just felt so. It just made me feel welcome and at ease, and I had a good gut feeling. So after we talked a little bit, told me everything about what the Guard could offer me, how it could help me reach all my goals that I ever wanted to do in my life. He did a field enlistment on me, and on July 18th of 2002, I joined the Guard family, and for me, it's probably been one of the best decisions I've ever made next to marrying my wife. So that's how I came to joining the Guard. And as far as being a recruiter, I was blessed enough to get into the AGR system, and I've done a lot of jobs through the training NCO, readiness, supply, battalion S1, and I've always heard the horror stories about coming to R&R. Mm-hmm. But truthfully, this is the best job I've had in my entire life, where I think I told you when we spoke on the phone that like every day I wake up with the possibility to change someone's life for the better. And for me, that's just so rewarding.
Well, that's awesome. That's kind of a lot to unpack there. I think it is super interesting now that you're a recruiter, have that active duty versus the National Guard comparison about where you're going to be 4 years from now. And I'm also a really big believer in you got to love it in order to sell it.
Roger.
And so we have a lot of people that maybe are out there selling for us that don't love it so much, that this is just a means to an end. It's like a job. And I understand that if you're a young person, you get in the HR program, but it really does have to be a lifestyle, and it's got to be something you really love. Like you're conveying, like the opportunity is incredible to make sure someone else doesn't have that same experience as you, for one.
Roger.
And providing that college education, which for most of us don't have a rich uncle other than our Uncle Sam. So here's a question that I ask high performing recruiters in this way on purpose. You've been successful and you've been your top recruiter in your state. So why is it that other recruiters are not as successful as you?
That's a good question, Sergeant Major. I'm not quite sure how to answer that, to be honest.
I just want the honest answer.
Well, a lot of times, and this is not just in recruiting, but just in life, a lot of people look for excuses instead of solutions. And so that we get caught up so much in the negativity and the, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, instead of I can do this. And I think a lot of times we face obstacles, but I think those obstacles are what make us better as not only recruiters, but just as individuals in general. And so if people would stop looking at the negativity and I can't do this and can't do that, and start looking at how I can accomplish this, how I can get into these high schools, how I can set a meeting with these parents that don't want to hear nothing I got to say. I think that their mindset and their outlook might change a little bit, and so will their productivity.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It's just like, what can we do? We know we're not for everybody. We know that. But we are for some, and it's a lot of some. So I like that answer. I think that if more people just focused on what they could do, they would get more enlistments and they would have less to complain about, for sure. So you mentioned that you were in the Tampa area. What have you done, and what is your approach to developing your battle space around Tampa?
So for me, Sergeant Major, I talk to anybody and everybody. If you got a heartbeat and you're above ground, I'm talking to you, because even though you might not be qualified, you know somebody that is qualified. And so the more people I talk to is really, it's just the name of the game. I just want to talk to anybody and everybody that'll hear me talk. As far as cultivating my schools, I would, on a monthly basis, I would start off feeding the entire school, all my high schools, right before the school year would begin. So that way every teacher knows who I am. And I give them a presentation of what the Guard is and what we have to offer and how we're partners in education with them. And then every month I would send out birthday cards to all the teachers on their birthdays as well, something a little different, so they know I'm not just any other recruiter, that I actually care about them, and I'm there for them as well. And then every month we would feed a different department in the school. So maybe this month it was science, next month it might be the math, next month it might be history. But then while they're eating lunch, I talk to them and build that relationship with them, so that way I can come and go as I please within any classroom I want, not just ROTC, because the ROTC, a lot of recruiters focus on ROTC, but that's just a small percentage. I want the whole school.
That's some good stuff there. I think when you show up in an area, they don't just naturally love you. You know, it would be nice, but they don't. And having to focus on the relationships, and you've been around for a little bit of time now, and you're starting to get more and more people that trust you. And if they trust you, you're going to have more access. So that's awesome. I think I know the answer to this, but I always ask it. It's like, so you're very big on making sure that you're doing prospecting, but what is your measure on a daily, weekly basis to ensure that you're doing enough? How do you hold yourself accountable to make sure that you're doing the prospecting?
Well, for me, it's not necessarily a set number every day. I wake up with the mindset that I want to be better than the person I was yesterday, and that's in recruiting. So if I left something on the table yesterday, today I'm going to make sure I accomplish that, and then some. It's how I for just me, just in general in life, I want to be a better father than I was yesterday, a better husband, a better son, and for me, I think that's to carry on the prospecting. I set a mark, but I don't always hit the number that I want to, as far as hitting talking to this amount X amount of people a day. But the next day, I strive to try to reach that goal and try to get better and better each day.
Well, it's something that, you probably don't have a lot of visibility to, but some is we don't know exactly what that number is every day, but we know it's not zero,
Roger.
and a lot of your peers will go a day and not talk to anybody about the guard, not talk to anybody. And I know that there's ankle biter tasks that we got to get done, but that's one that it is non-negotiable. We have got to talk to people about our organization every day. It's just not, we're not going to move
Roger
forward.
that.
So
I tell a lot of people, because a lot of times when you go out to a good restaurant, you're so quick to tell somebody, "Hey, go try this restaurant. It's phenomenal." And the same thing's true about the guard for me. If it's so phenomenal, why wouldn't we want to share this information with everybody we run in contact with?
yeah, you never know where someone's at in their life. That waiter or waitress or the person that's getting you the coffee, they might be really looking for a change. And we know that we have so many opportunities that can open all the doors that they're looking to have open, but they just don't know about the guard. Like so many people don't know about the guard. So I think that's a terrific attitude to have. I'm curious, a lot of times when I do training with recruiters, they'll say, well, how do you ask them to join? Right. and I'll say, well, you ask them to join. And they'll say, but how do you do that? And it sounds like, are you ready to join the National Guard? That's what I tell them. But I'm kind of interested in your approach to not only the closing, but the interviewing piece of your business. What's your thought process on it?
Well, the initial appointment, I guess, or initial conversation, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone, my mindset is you're already joining the guard family off the bat. And then when you come in, I want to get to know who you are, what you're about, what your goals are, where you see yourself 3, 4, 5 years from now, everything. I want to get to know them, and I want them to get to know me, so we're not just strangers. I want to truly make it a personal experience for each and every person I talk to. That way it lets, number one, their guard down, their defense down, and they know I'm human as well, and there's a human aspect to it. And then from there, tell them everything there is to know about the guard, from A to Z, everything in between, the good, the bad, the ugly. Give them the information, and then it's up to them what decision they're going to ultimately make. But 99.9% of the time, that they're ready to join the family immediately. And that's what I just asked them straight up. Hey, you ready to join the family? And I'm going to get a north and south. And if I get an east and west, I'll try to, hey, what concerns do you have? And we're going to address the concerns right then and there. Sometimes you could also do on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, 1 being you never want to see my face ever again. Where's the guard stand with you right now? And then you'll have a good picture at that point as well too. But typically I just ask them straight up, Sergeant Major.
Well, I think there's a couple highlighted things, especially for new recruiters, to think about that when you're talking about the interview piece. Is what you're describing is them talking a lot more, and I think how we're trained at recruiting school is like, I gotta get this stuff out. When it is more, it's a conversation about them, and because we know that we have something to match what they're looking for. We know that. And I think it's really important for recruiters to understand that it really is that simple. That, are you ready to join the family? Are you ready to join the guard? Are you ready to make this commitment? Those those things are definitive instead of something like, well, how does that sound? If I told you I was going to give you $7,500 in a bonus and pay for your college, that would sound good to almost everybody. But if in order to get that, you have to join our organization. For some, that's no, that doesn't sound very good. I don't want to do it.
Roger.
So that's why we asked that definitive question. So you get people in, you get them closed on, and you like to have them closed on that day, which I like. What is it that you start to be thinking about right away on processing then? What's your approach to processing to make it so they're going to have a successful trip through MAPS?
Well, when they come in for the initial interview, I have them bring all the supporting docs, so that way, if they are ready to rock and roll, we can go ahead and make copies of their documentation. They can leave with a packet, an application packet right then and there in hand. And then from there, it's if they've already taken the ASVAB test, then a simple high school poll possibly, or doing a little spiff. But if they haven't, that's the next thing in line, is getting you down to MEPS and taking the ASVAB, and then from there, physical. But I always want to keep them engaged. I never want to keep them going too long without anything, because I always want them to be thinking about the guard. And so at least if I'm texting them maybe at least once a day, hey, how's your day going? How's the process? Any questions on the application? And so within about a 72-hour period from our initial interview, typically, sometimes it's longer, but I'll have a completed application back, all the supporting docs, and then by the next week, we're testing it physically.
Well, I like that presumptive close about bringing in the supporting documents. And that's something that new recruiters and struggling recruiters can really grab onto, because I already believe if they're willing to talk to you, they're willing to do the interview, they want to join. They may not,
Roger.
we might discover something that makes them ineligible, but they want to join. But it ups the ante when they're give you no pushback and bring in those supporting documents. We're talking about joining. That's what we're talking about. And I think it's important to keep that engagement up as well, because we know that there's a lot of people in their circle that's going to say, well, that's kind of a risky move to make, to be joining the military, right? There's going to be counter recruiters in their world that are going to work against it. So keeping them engaged and keeping them understanding that they made this commitment and we're moving forward, and so they know. So that, I think those are really good practices. What about your brief to prepare them for MAPS? As far as what do you think is the most important part of that?
For me, I think the most important part for a MEPS briefing is, if I go from, if for a new recruiter that hasn't done a right seat ride at MEPS and actually gone through the process, I would encourage any recruiter to. And even if you have, the process is continuously changing. So go through MEPS and experience what your applicants are going through. And that way you can brief them on the latest and greatest of what to expect when they get there, so they're not shocked. But for me, I from the time I drop you off at the hotel, what to expect when you're checking into your room, to your dinner that night, to when you're getting on the bus the next day, to when you're going to go outside and wait like in a big gaggle until they form you up and everyone's going to walk in like zombies because everyone's tired, to the briefing, to when you're going through security, and then you're going to get fingerprinted so they know who's in the building at all times. Then they're going to give you a name tag. You're going to go get your medical records. After that, you're going to walk across over to medical. The first thing you're probably going to do is a vision test and a hearing test. After that, they're going to give you a huge stack of paper. And this is where the doctors and the civilians are going to try to intimidate you. They're going to try to make you think that you got everything wrong with you, because their job is to disqualify you. They want to make sure that every branch of service is getting the best qualified applicant, no matter what branch of service it is. So if anything that you said to me, which is, and normally the applicant at that point would say all no's, I'd say if anything changes from that, I promise you're not going to join the Guard family today. I don't care if it's just something as small as a Tylenol. If you told me no, what should you tell the medical staff? And they'll repeat their answer. And Then I'll continue on with how the full physical is going to entail when it goes down to the height and weight, to the urinalysis, to the duck walk, and then the doc coming in and asking all the medical questions again, Sergeant Major.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff there. I think it really is important that they know what is going to happen in the sequence that it's going to happen. And most importantly, that the staff at MAPS' job is to disqualify you. That's what their objective is. Your objective is to enlist. Their objective is to prevent you from enlisting if there's any issue, and they're going to look for the issues. So I think those are good tactics and techniques to have a more success at MAPS. And you know, that takes time. It takes time to make sure that they're going to be successful. So what do you do that's different, or what do you think is important about taking care of people, the service after the sale aspect? What do you do?
I think that's huge, Sergeant Major, because yeah, it's great that we get them in the guard and get them off to training, but for me, it's super important to continue that relationship going. Because I tell them once they join, they don't just join the guard family, they're joining my family as well. And so I make it a point that every single month, every single soldier that I've ever enlisted into the guard, I make contact with, either through a text, through phone call, see how their family is doing, and just maintain that contact. And then in doing that, they're going to know that I truly care about them, and the referrals that are coming in just off that alone is enormous. And then they see how, hey, oh, Sergeant Besser took care of me when I joined. He helped me with my educational benefits, helped me get my GI Bill set up. Then they're going to tell their friends, and then their friends are going to want to join. Then they're going to want to tell their friends, and it's just a trickle down effect. So, and I've always been the one to, for me personally, I want to treat someone how I want to be treated. And so I treat every applicant as if they are my family, as if they are my son, my daughter, my brother, my sister.
Well, I think, you know, the key takeaway there is making sure they got what they signed up for, making sure that they're given time. They don't just know how to do this stuff once they're in, and just maintaining that contact. And the best recruiters get a lot of referrals. The best recruiters get a lot of referrals because they take care of people. That's the bottom line. Do you what social media platforms do you use, and what's your social media presence?
So I have a lot of shortcomings, but this is probably my biggest one, is that I don't have social media, Sergeant Major. I'm not up to the latest. I don't have Facebook. My wife makes fun of me all the time. I probably should get some type of social media, but I don't have any.
Well, I think there is a lesson there to, you know, obviously it would enhance your business. I think it would. But for those recruiters out there, they're spending so much time on social media. It's pretty rare at one of my high performer events that I'll run into a high performing recruiter that says it's really the cornerstone of my business is social media. It's just, you know, a lot do things with social media, but it's not how they get their enlistments. They get their enlistments from talking to people. And it's more one-on-one. You can't be wrong when you're being Chiefs 54 and tearing it up. So
no, but I do know that that's an area where I probably should target a little bit stronger than what I am now, which is 0.
Yeah, it definitely help, without a doubt. I always think you're probably in a better position now too, after you've been recruiting for a little bit of time, to have a professional business presence. And it's not your personal stuff. This is your professional account. And to be from the ground floor up, there's been a lot of recruiters before you that have made a lot of mistakes on social media. Because you don't have anything right now, you can learn from all those mistakes and not have it just be scraping all your personal stuff over. If that's the case, it can be seeking out individuals that are really influencers instead of just having the other 76 recruiters in Florida following you.
Roger.
Because that doesn't do you any good. Because they're looking to get enlistments too. So I'm curious about your how you manage your time. You know, what's a typical day for you?
The struggle can be real at times, Sergeant Major. The typical day obviously start for me it starts around 6. Get up, do PT, help my wife get the kids ready for school, and then I try to be behind my desk no later than 8:30. So that way, I set a time just for about 30 to 45 minutes. I'll get check my emails, do whatever I got to do, and then after that I block another period of time where I'm looking at nothing but hot leads, making phone calls, prospecting, texting people. That'll take probably about anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, where I'm just going through all my hot leads, scrubbing my boxes, and then from there I'm either following up with individuals that I'm currently working, talking to MEPs throughout the day. But there's no set time where I leave. This job, as you know, Sergeant Major, there's no set hours. So there's been many nights where I've been at the office 10, 11 o'clock at night ordering pizza. But for me, those long nights are the best nights in recruiting, where you're grinding, working these late nights and helping people accomplish what they want, and that's joining the Guard. Well, I try to. I'm sorry, but again, I try really. I don't want any white space on my schedule. I always want to be doing something productive.
And I think that is what is a bit of a challenge. Is it doesn't have to be a division horse blanket like plan, but it's got to be something of, this is what I'm working. And I think it's super interesting. This has come up a lot more since COVID, especially people at your peer group, high performing recruiters, are going to say, I'm calling those hot leads right away. And of course, we know some of them are terrible, but some are not terrible. And some of those people are really interested, and we really get them enlisted. And so making a point, because those were basically freebies. So why not hit them up right away? So I like that. And the idea that you're not going to have white space. I'm going to, if I'm waiting, I'm losing type of mindset, that I got to be doing something, there's got to be some action towards getting an enlistment today. I think a lot of recruiters could just benefit from that. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be something very simple. I'm going to call those hot leads. If I'm not processing someone, I got to be prospecting. That makes a ton of sense to do as a business. What do you think your secret sauce is? You've been a successful recruiter. You're a rookie of the year. Is that true?
I've been, so far, this is my 4th year on production, so I'm majoring, and so 3 complete years of recruiting, and 2 of the 3 I've been the Chiefs 54. I've been blessed to be the top recruiter in Florida. But and I think, yes, I was the recruiter, or the rookie recruiter of the year too. So
you've had a lot of success. What do you think the secret sauce to that success is?
Always developing. I feel no matter who you are, we can always learn. And I love learning stuff from other people, whether someone thinks they're a struggling recruiter or a past Chiefs 54 winner. I think we can pick up stuff and add it to our tool bag, no matter who you are, no matter what stage in your career you are in this profession. We can always develop and get better. And that's what I always try to learn and get better every single day.
Good stuff. So right now, it's almost halfway through the year, and there's, probably 10 to 15% of recruiters have no doubt that they're going to get their mission delivered, and they're going to get it done soon. And there's that probably bottom 10% that they're not going to put forth the effort to get it done, and they don't believe they can. But that middle 75% is out there, and they want to make mission. But some are struggling. Some of them are just holding steady, what advice would you give to them about getting this sucker done and getting that mission delivered, that middle 75% of the recruiting force out there?
I think it would just be the drive, the inner drive, and all and looking back and saying, why did you want to be a recruiter to begin with? There's a why behind, just like for an applicant, there's a why as to why they want to join the Guard. And for all of us, no one forced us into this position. This is not like USAREC where we came on assignment, all that stuff. So each and every one of us took time out of our lives, put in an application and submitted it, hoped and prayed that we got selected. And then once we did, now we get this amazing job and paycheck. So looking back as to why they applied, why are they here? Is it just for a paycheck? Is it for their family? Is it for the benefits? Is it for the retirement? And making that their driving force. And again, not looking for the excuse and try to find the solutions. Yes, we know COVID sucks, and it's making a huge burden on a lot of people in a lot of different areas, and certain counties and states are dealing with it in different ways. But there's other areas that we can. There's people still eating at restaurants around their high schools. There's still people going to the mall and buying stuff because they tell me the economy is bad, but every time I drive by the mall, it's packed. So for me, that's great because people are shopping. People are that 90% of the people that are walking around, I think, are going to be qualified for me as long as they pass my eye test. Obviously, once we get to talking, they might disqualify themselves. But there's other places and avenues that you can look for other than a high school. Yeah, the high school is great, and that's the market we should be targeting because they're easy, easy package to build, get them in and processed. But if you're finding obstacles and barriers, there's workarounds. I think you said it best when you came down to Florida, Sergeant Major, and we're talking, market your area and find out what restaurants, what businesses students will possibly be working at around like that radius of the high school. Go in there and attack that and talk to them then if you can't get into the high schools. So
Yeah.
I would just encourage them to look deep and figure out what it is that they actually, why they became a recruiter, and make that their driving force.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, that somehow after people are recruiting for a little bit of time, the negatives outweigh the positives. And I guess it was the preacher yesterday at church. He said, we got to accept the fact that most of our problems come from ourselves, and so your words to those recruiters, I think, is very useful, is figure out why you wanted to do this job in the first place and focus on what you can do. There's a lot of workarounds. So that's some really good stuff. I think we got some stuff down here that is going to be useful for recruiters, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to do this. And I mean, your team down there and what you've done is definitely on the uptick, and your guys are figuring out how to get it done. So I do think a lot of people just knowing that is useful. So
can I add something else too, Sergeant Major?
sure.
So I know we have a lot of I think in Florida we just have so many amazing recruiters. We have one recruiter who I think this is just an amazing idea what she did. Staff Sergeant King is her name, and she's a beast, like straight beast mode. And what she does is, because again, high schools are difficult to get in, but every person she puts in that was in high school, now they become like her personal ambassadors. And so for these recruiters around the nation that might be struggling, I think her program, she calls it like an ambassador program, but she makes them rep the Guard if she can't get in. Like, she's the recruiter on campus, wearing Guard swag, talking to, and makes it mandatory that they come up and give her new leads every single week.
That's good stuff. Yeah. Just kind of like you mentioned, there is a workaround. And birds of a feather flock together. So if you got someone enlisted, they're qualified, they're doing the right stuff, and they were interested and committed to joining, their friends are going to be very similar to them. So that's good stuff. Well, I want to thank you for coming on And I wish you luck the rest of the way, but luck really doesn't have anything to do with it. It's what you will do, and I'm confident that you'll continue to tear it up. So thanks.
Roger that, Sergeant Major. I appreciate the time.
Awesome.
All right, Sergeant Major. You take care.